On-set Republican presidential candidate and former New York Governor George Pataki.
South Carolina senior senator joins us now.
Republican candidate for President Mike Huckabee.
We're going to fight the fight, make the case, talk about my record and vision.
We're just talking about hearing loss. It's really sad getting old. Exactly.
Why do you want to run for president? Just to do the easy things?
Yes, Steve.
I don't want to run for president. Well, I do.
There should be at least one or two hedge funder out there that are like your big check.
Well, I can't ask him for that because I'm a candidate. If somebody's watching the show, and let Joe know where to send the check.
Give me a call.
Okay.
I'm the only person on the Republican ticket who's ever faced the Clinton political machine. If anybody is prepared for that battle, it's the guy sitting next to you today.
Oh, or is it the guy sitting next to you today?
Right,
we don't know. Morning Joe's been a campaign stop of sorts for Republican presidential candidates. So far this week alone, 3 have joined the table, and joining us now, former governor of Texas, Republican presidential candidate Rick Perry.
It is great to have you back.
I've liked what you've said recently.
Well, I'm coming from you. That's very
horrible.
I was going to say that may not be good because she's not going to vote in any Republican primary.
You know what?
Okay.
It's the general election. You can start working on that.
So you know, we first met at the Republican Governors Association conference, and I was surprised that you would even talk to me because we had a rough back and forth in 2012. But I always said one of your great skills and the skills of a great politician is you just can't have a memory. I don't have a memory unless you talk about my family. Then I never forget, and you're the same way. But when we got up there, I think the thing that struck me the most was you were talking about your dad. Talking about your dad in West Texas, blue-collar guy. I think he was a Democrat. And I sat there thinking, wait, he doesn't have a trust fund. He's not from an oil family. This guy can probably understand what struggling Americans are going through. It sounded like yesterday that's what your message was aimed for.
Well, we were just talking about real-life experiences. I mean, grew up in a place 16 miles from the closest post office in a house that didn't have plumbing. Outhouse was the way you took care of yourself, and Mom bathed us in the '2 wash tub on the back porch and sewed our clothes until I went off to college. So my mom's still a quilter. My mom's 86 years old. She travels around.
Your mom gave you a bath till you went off to college?
Well, I'm saying, well.
Sewed your clothes. I'm just being a jerk. But you seriously, so you guys didn't have indoor plumbing till you went off to college?
No, we were 7 or 8. 7 or 8.
Wow.
We actually, well, when my sister got to be old enough to have friends over, Mom said, listen, we're building a bath in the house.
Who?
So the friends came over, and well, I didn't, but I watched, and we built it. Yeah. And we had indoor plumbing in the house. But it was a great way to grow up.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful community. My football coach was my track coach, and my basketball coach, he was a civics teacher, he was the principal and the bus driver. Okay?
Yeah.
That's Paint Creek. And my scoutmaster was also the superintendent of the Sunday school class. And was also the president of the school board. I mean, it's a really small community. People who taught us those values of hard work, of trust, of God and country, duty. My scoutmaster, who sent me to the college that I went to.
Yeah.
I mean, all of those are experiences that paint my view of the world. Just like my military service paints my view of the world. It's why I care so much about these veterans.
So why are you running?
I think America needs somebody in the White House every day. I'll give you an example. These veterans that are being so ill-suited today by the Veterans Administration, they need somebody that goes to the White House every day and thinks about them and makes a phone call. I don't think the president today does that. And one of the reasons the Veterans Administration is not changed, and that culture is not changed, is there is not a president today, when he shows up at the Oval Office, calls his chief of staff and says, what are you doing to take care of these veterans? Why is that agency not on the way to recovery? That's just a good example of things I care about, I'm passionate about. Obviously, creating jobs. We got a job creation record in Texas that nobody can compete with. That's just the facts. I'm not saying anything.
And we've been talking about Connecticut and the sad story of Connecticut. Everybody's leaving Connecticut. Your job record, you're right. Everybody's been coming to Texas. What could my home state of Connecticut do to emulate what you did in Texas to bring all of those jobs to a state that is now dead last in job creation for 5 years?
Joe, it's simple. There are 4 things that you have to deal with. It's tax policy, it's regulatory policy, it's a legal policy, and it's a skilled workforce, which basically translates to accountable public school policies. You don't overtax, you don't overregulate, you don't overlitigate, And we've done all those things over that decade in Texas, and the proof is in the pudding. The results are, from 07 through 2014, 1.5 million jobs created.
Wow.
We added 5.6 people to the population rolls of Texas. Interestingly, during that same period of time, we lowered substantially the environmental emissions in that state. So you can, I mean, there's a 12th largest economy in the world. This is not an inconsequential place.
Okay, so you were talking the other day about income inequality and sticking up for Americans who have gotten a raw deal.
Yeah.
And now tell me how you would do that, who you would take on, who's to blame, and do you have what it takes to sometimes perhaps go against the very people that you might need politically?
Right. Well, I think how you deal with it is to get this country back on track. And when I talk back on track, I'm talking about economically. Lower the corporate tax rate, because any accountant worth their salt will tell you, lower the corporate tax rate by 10%, you're going to raise mid-level jobs by 5 to 10%. Every blue-collar worker out there, I mean, my Teamster friends need to be saying, you know what, I'm for Perry because he's going to raise our wages, so we're going to be able to have a better environment to raise our families.
But you're not saying anything right now that is, you know, going to insult anybody that you need politically.
Oh,
You're talking about like Wall Street?
Yeah,
I hope I don't insult anybody. I hope what I say is, here's what needs to change.
In order to make changes?
If Wall Street, I don't believe there's anybody too big to fail. I think we made a huge mistake when we passed too big to fail. I said that with GM publicly back in whenever that was, like in 2009, when they were trying to get their deal through, and I said, I'm not for that. And GM's got a manufacturing facility in Texas, but use the bankruptcy laws. When corporate leaders make bad mistakes, they need to be held accountable, whether they're on Wall Street or whether they're on Main Street.
Willie.
Governor, this is obviously your second time through this process. You did it 4 years ago. You had some good moments and you had some famously not so great moments that a lot of people remember. I think outside the state of Texas, if you ask somebody down the street in New York, they say, oh yeah, that's the guy who couldn't remember the third agency. How do you get past that? Do you feel like you have to recast yourself a little bit this time to sort of give people a second look at you, in effect?
Well, I think that's exactly what's going on, and anyone who's done this more than once is recasting themselves. I'm pretty sure that Bill Clinton had to recast himself after his rather disastrous speech in front of the Democrat convention. So everyone does that. We've spent a lot of time in preparation for this moment. I knew that if I was going to be a legitimate candidate, give myself an opportunity to be successful, I had to spend substantial time in preparation on monetary policy, domestic policy, on foreign policy. We've done that. I'm ready to stand on the stage.
You just jumped in too fast last time.
And not prepared. I admit it, I wasn't prepared.
And you said it, you had a bad back injury. We were just talking about it, bad back injury, and that really, well, actually two people at this table can understand that's just about as debilitating as anything, right?
Where do you stand on raising the minimum wage?
I'm not for it. I think you address all of these issues, taxes issues, the issues of regulations, and let the economy grow. I want people to have a good job, and I want people to have jobs. You raise the minimum wage, and again, I side with those that say you're going to push down the number of jobs in this country. We've already got 93 million people not working in this country. Why create more of a gap there by mandating a raise of the minimum wage?
Is there a spiritual crisis in the country now?
A spiritual crisis in the country? I think, I can only speak for myself. And I know where my hope for the future is in my Lord and Savior. Everybody else is going to have to find that place for them too. If people are looking for government to be their savior, they're looking at the wrong place. The things we have in this country, they were given to us by God, not by government. And now, if you call a spiritual crisis relying on government as a crisis, I will suggest to you we got a spiritual crisis if you're looking for government to be your savior.
Let's talk about you and Jeb Bush. Now, there's long been, and you've read the reports, that you and the Bush family don't like each other. Very competitive. Of course, there are also long been rumors that Jeb and George W. don't like each other. So, I mean, it's...
I put those all in the rumor category.
You put those all in the... So what do you think? Was George W. Bush a great governor? Was he a great president?
He was a good governor to work with. We were partners for that only 2-year period of time that I was the lieutenant governor.
Right.
His father, one of the great men of American history. I mean, a patriot who I admire greatly. The Bushes are a great family.
Yeah.
Jeb was a good governor. It's going to be a good competition. There's really extraordinary men and women. I worked with Carly through the years.
Right. What about George W. Bush? Was George W. Bush a great president or a good president?
I think a good president, yes, sir. I mean, he kept
Iraq. Let's talk about Iraq. Did he make a mistake? Because Jeb couldn't answer that question.
I said the more important question, and yes, mistakes were made in Iraq. When you look at
was it a mistake to go into Iraq?
I think going into Iraq was a decision that, knowing what I know today,
right,
I would not have gone into Iraq. I don't think anyone would have gone into Iraq. But here's the more important question, is that knowing what we know today, would Secretary Clinton and President Obama have pulled out of Iraq in 2011? No. That decision that I will suggest to you was probably made in 2009 has been tragic.
How do we defeat ISIS?
You do it with a coalition. The Saudis, the Jordanians, the Turks, the Egyptians, the Israelis, and other allies in that region. You put together a very focused, disciplined, highly leveraged, intelligent machine. And when I talk about intelligence, I'm talking about intelligence gathering machine.
Right.
And then you use your military special operators to go in and eliminate ISIS.
You mentioned Israel. The president's talking about the possibility of letting the United Nations vote on statehood for the Palestinians. Is that a mistake, or is that something you'd support?
I think it's a mistake. I think it's sending the wrong message. We are in the process of sending almost, well, too often, messages to our allies that you can't count on us. Israel has been our longest, steadiest friend in the region. They're the most vibrant democracy in the Middle East. And we send a message to Israel almost on a weekly basis that you really can't trust us.
Yeah.
And so when other people who may not be our friends see that, they realize that they've got some leeway. I think that's exactly why this Iranian deal is going where it's going. I think it's exactly the reason that you see Vladimir Putin pushing into the regions that he's in. They don't trust America's leadership to be there when they need them.
How's your family?
They're great. I got 2 grandbabies now. Nita's in the process of finishing up the house she's been working on for about 1.5 years. And every time it clouded up, it rained east of Austin. So we're making progress.
She seemed to be pretty pumped, pretty excited when she announced your candidacy. I mean, the last time was kind of tough for everybody, but looks like she's in it to win it.
She is. I would hate to run for president, or I'd hate to run for school board for that matter, if my spouse wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Mine is. She's committed. She's a patriot.
Yeah.
Those young men and women on the stage standing with me yesterday, they're really important to her.
Yeah.
I mean, she's every bit as much a power behind this effort to make sure our veterans get the care that they need as I am.
All right, Governor Rick Perry, it's good to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
We'd love to have you, man.
Thanks, Governor.
Thank you for coming.
Very nice, very charming.
Thank you. As are you.
Yeah, you don't know where that